Okay, is it gone live?
Looks like in the corner.
Can you still hear me all right, by the way?
Yeah. Okay. Hi, guys. All right, I can see that we're live over the Bridgend Music Talent Pool Facebook page and on YouTube. So a big warm welcome to Romesh today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in and having a chat with us and answering some questions from the students. So how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, not bad. Trying to adjust again to another lockdown right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, all good. I'm kind of just refocused on like more mixing at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything's going all right there.
Brilliant. So I think the best way to start this off, Rom, is just to say a little bit about how you sort of got into the music industry and the music industry in Wales, and and just a little bit about some of the acts that you've been working with, because I know a lot of our students have been doing a bit of research on yourself, just so a lot of people that are tuned in now will get to know who you've worked with.
Yeah. So I started. I mean, I kind of got interested in all this when I was younger, and I just started playing guitar, and I got really interested in, okay, how can I get the guitar sounds that I want in my head to come out the speakers? And got really interested in. I'm getting an echo, by the way. How can I get the guitar sounds that I want in my head to come out the speakers? So it kind of started there, really. And I started buying bits of equipment and things that I could record myself playing with. And then I just kind of got really obsessed with how can I get that exact sound to, how can I replicate things, and that's where it started, really. And then after a little while, I just wanted to kind of have some bits and pieces to kind of make my own demos and stuff like that. And so I gradually start buying little small pieces of equipment that I needed to do that. And I had some friends who were kind of living nearby that were also kind of musicians, and I would basically use them to help me learn how to get better at the recording side of things. And then as things kind of do, it just all it just became the thing I was obsessed with. And I remember when I used to go into recording studios with the band I was in, I was way more interested in being in the studio and how things were coming together than I was even being in a band. So I kind of decided that I wanted to focus more on becoming a producer. Yeah, I mean, I set up a little studio over time in the side of my house, and I think there was a few bands that I started to work with, and one was a band called Kids in Glass Houses. Well, it started with a band called Dopamine, actually, which was an older Welsh rock band, and that led me to a band called Kids in Glass Houses. And I think as those bands I was working with at the time were starting to get bigger, that was helping me as well. And then once you do a few artists like that, the people were contacting me then wanting that same kind of production sound. So I'd say everything kind of started there, really. I eventually, once things were kind of I was getting quite busy, I kind of decided to move my studio somewhere more dedicated. So I moved everything into, I teamed up with a rehearsal studio, and I had my studio in there, in their building. And then, yeah, I mean, after a while, I took on my own place, and yeah, been, very fortunate to work with some awesome artists over the years.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got a question from a big fan of the music that you've produced, Naomi Collins. We had a good chat about you yesterday, Rob.
Hey, Naomi, how you doing?
So what was the music scene like in Wales when you were starting out? And what advice would you give to someone starting out today?
The music scene was amazing. It was so exciting. At the time, when things, when kind of, there was a point where like, because we're all friends, like the whole Welsh music scene, everyone knows each other and everyone's really good friends. And I think one of the great things that I always noticed about the Welsh music scene was everyone wanted to help each other get further. And there was a point where like when things were kicking off for me as well, like the whole music scene was kicking off. You had Kids in Glass Houses, you had the Blackout, you had Funeral for a Friend, Bullets, and then you had the Phonics, the Manics were like smashing it, and it was just so exciting. So there was definitely a lot of artists around, and that was really helpful at the time. But in terms of starting out now, I mean, I think things have changed a little bit where like there's a lot more online activity. But I think like the main advice is, try and find some artists that you think you can bring something to the table with, and that you'd be a good match with, and use that stuff and build a a portfolio of your work. Because that way, you're building up a showcase of what you can do then, and it's only a matter of time before more people start to take, to start noticing you, and that person's done a great job on this song. I'd like to work with them. So yeah, I mean, just start building a catalog of your work and use it as a showcase. I can't hear you now, by the way.
Sorry. One of the biggest artists that you've produced that I absolutely loved their record was Kids in Glass Houses, Smart Casual. That record was absolutely outstanding. And the first time I ever seen that band was actually my first year when I started in college, and I took them up to the Pop Factory in Porth. And we watched them do a live session and stuff. I can't remember the singer's name now, but Alid, that's it. And they didn't have a click track for the beginning of the song for it to start, because there was a lot synced up and everything, and it was just quite funny. And Twin Atlantic played the same show as well.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so that was a great trip for the students back in the day, and you've worked with two of them for them. But that Kids in Glass Houses album, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about the production that you used on that record?
Yeah, I mean, that was just such a great record to make. There's nothing better than making a record with some of your best friends. It was really, really, it was really fun and easy. I think for me, on that record, I wanted this really clean sounding production, but like I was really wanting like interesting guitar sounds and just I don't know. Whenever I heard those songs, I was all like, whenever I heard them in demo form and stuff, I was already building up the sound of how it should be on record, and it was a really, really, really great one to make. I think it took about a month of recording and then maybe about half a month of mixing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's nothing crazy going on that record. I think we just spent a lot of time with sounds and trying different guitar pedals. There's a lot of, there's a bunch of clean guitars, which are actually the DI. That because I really was like into getting that kind of Michael Jackson clean DI sound on some of the things. And I think there's like, it might be a song called Girls. Or there's a couple of like little clean guitar bits that are just a DI into a compressor pedal straight into the console. And I kind of love those, those unusual sounds sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think we used a bunch of stuff on that record. There's a lot of cool, I think, Fender Twins and JCM 800s on that record. There was a lot at that time. I was using a lot of Amp Farm as well, which was an old plugin that Line 6 made. There's like a couple of patches on there that were amazing, and I was always sneaking that in there somewhere at that time.
Yeah. Fab. Okay, I've got a question from David Hill. What one band would you love to help produce the record with, either a band in the past or in the present?
That's a tough one. I'll go with a completely unrealistic answer and say Aerosmith, because I love the sound. Their records just sound so massive, and I bet it's a fun time working on one of those productions.
Yeah.
I've always admired the sound of their, and like musician wise, they're just unbelievable. But I think it would be fun to be in the room with Steven Tyler and all them, and that'd be a cool experience.
Yeah, fantastic. I got another question from Naomi. Any recording tips and tricks that you have that aren't normal? And I suppose she must probably thought about that one, because we've been speaking a lot about Sylvia Massey on the degree course recently.
Right.
And she's doing a seminar for us next week.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So, so anything a little bit different out of the box that you do when you're recording?
Put me on the spot here. So, I mean, one thing I do with drums, I'm very, the snare drum is very important to me. So one thing I am consciously doing is, I guess it's not unusual, but it's something that I do, is I will create a shield, because the main problem that you always get with snare drum mics is there's usually a lot of hi-hat leakage, or a lot of the time it's the ride cymbal, actually, because people tend to block the hi-hats by putting the off-axis where the hi-hat is, but the problem is that's then facing in line with where the ride is kind of going. So I just I split the difference now, but I build a kind of using high density foam. I kind of build a little shield for this for the snare, and that's a great way to kind of lower some of that, so you get a more isolated snare sound. Other recording, I mean, it's not a trick as such, but one thing that I've been doing for years now is I record the singer in the same room as me. And I think that's made a huge difference in my sessions. I always find it's kind of weird when the singer's just in a room on their own behind a piece of glass and they can't hear what anyone's saying in the control room. And you press the talkback mic and everyone's laughing in the control room about something, and they don't have, it just feels really disconnected. So I have in my studio, I have two studios. I've got it's an A and a B, and studio B is like a smaller, deader room, and I just record my vocals in the same room as the singer, because I think it's amazing that I can just turn around and talk to them, or sing a melody idea or something, and it feels more like a team. Where I find when I'm kind of talk back through someone behind a massive piece of glass, it doesn't feel very connected. So I think that's one thing. If you're not doing that, maybe give it a whirl. You just need a pair of headphones each. Just turn the monitors off. I think that's been I think all singers have really loved doing it that way.
Yeah. And I've noticed that you really like the the Jay-Z V67 microphone for vocals.
Oh, huge. That's one of the best mics I've ever heard in a long time. It just completely blew me away. I've been using it as my main vocal mic now for so long. There's been a few cases as well where I've I've produced a couple of tracks, but someone else had mixed some of them, and they even like emailed me going, "What is this vocal mic you're using?" Because I don't have to do anything on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great mic. That.
Yeah. So what do you run that in? What's your sort of vocal chain then with the JZ mic?
It varies. So I've got two options. So the one option is like an analog path, which would be a Chandler TG2 preamp into. I love the Blue Stripe 1176. That's my favorite vocal compressor. So it'll go into one of those. And then I've got these things by Roger Mayer. They're called a 456, and it's basically simulating hitting tape. So that will be one option for me. And my other option is just going straight into a UA Apollo 8P, because I think those are brilliant. And like I've had a lot of people kind of ask me, like, is it good enough? And it definitely is. You can get some great sounds out of those. I've got the rack unit, but even those new twins are, really good units.
Yeah, fab. So we got a question by Yaya Nichols, sorry. When producing bands such as Motorhead, Bring Me the Horizon, from a bassist standpoint, would you say adding distortion to bass helps to cut through the mix?
Definitely. If you're, if you're working on that kind of music where there's going to be a lot of distorted guitars, and you've got it, I really like the bass to be prominent. I know in a lot of heavier records, there's a lot of producers or mixers, and they have the bass really quiet, and it drives me nuts, because I really want to feel that fatness in the low end of the bass, and the bass really the bass glues everything together. So yeah, distortion definitely. I think the bass is kind of an instrument that a lot of people overlook, and it's so important to get right. One thing that I really can't stand is when there's holes in the bass. So what I mean by that is notes that are just weak, and when you've got the track playing, you've got that low end, really solid, and the bass players played it weak for a couple of notes. Like, you really feel all the low end just kind of sink. So I work quite a lot with the bass player to make sure that they're, every note is nice and clear. I compress it very hard on the way in as well, and then I'll probably compress it hard again when it's inside the DAW. But yeah, in terms of distortion, amps, try guitar amps. They're amazing for bass. What you can do is get a splitter pedal, or you can use a DI box and the through. There's nothing. You're not going to break a guitar amp by plugging a bass into it, and it's the most gnarly distortion. If that doesn't work, or you can't do that, then if you get your bass channel, your DI channel, duplicate it, and try running it through a guitar amp sim. And what you can do, you need to check that the phase is good between them. But you could also just cut all the low end out of the amp sim track, so you've still got the clean low end from the DI, but you're getting all that kind of attack and attitude from the amp sim.
Brilliant. Okay, I've got a question here from Teg and Owen, aka Welsh Teg. What's an experience of different music scene culture outside of the UK that stands out to you? So really jumps out to you across the world?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm quite open when it comes to what music I listen to, and I like kind of absorbing other ideas that's not rock music, and going, you can learn so much by just listening to other stuff and stealing ideas.
Yeah.
But I can't you put me on the spot here with that question. I can't think off the top of my head, but I do try and take influences and listen to lots of styles of music for sure.
Yeah.
When you went to the States, didn't you, to record Bring Me the Horizon?
Yeah.
Did you notice anything different there, like in terms of just like staff working at the studio? Is there anything different to the UK there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the assistants I had were so on it. They were, and I guess it leads me to something we should probably discuss at some point, is the role of an assistant and how important it is to have a good one on a session. But yeah, everything's very, very organized here. I mean, I say that when I go into other studios here in the UK, it is still really good. I guess there's so much more rock music out there though. And they've got so many stations, haven't they? There's like, it's there's a lot going on there in terms of outlets for music for sure. But yeah, I think I mean, I definitely notice way more kind of rock music kind of culture and stuff down there.
Okay, should we talk about that role of the assistant now, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay, so what sort of because I know we're going to talk a little bit about your control room later on, and I know you've written a really good article about assisting and stuff on there. Do you want to give your thoughts about the assistant role?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing that there's a lot of you who are watching this from Bridgend College that are probably going to be looking at potentially going into an assisting role in the studio. And the assistant on a session is just hugely important to me as a producer. There's so many things that happen in the background, or should happen in the background, that allows the session to run smoothly. And if you get that right, a producer will be extremely thankful to you for that, and will really value your work. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it starts with just being helpful at the start of the session, maybe asking the producer, what mics do you want ready for the session? You should always kind of have like a channel list ready, a spreadsheet with an iPad, or even on paper, whatever, and you should be ready to log what microphone the producer or engineer wants to use, into what preamp, into what any EQ or compression, because then you should be getting there before the producer gets there, having that stuff set up. It's a great feeling when a producer can walk into the studio and they haven't got to tell you to do anything. You've thought about the whole situation, and that they are great qualities to have. And it's being quiet in the session is very important. Unfortunately, you're not the person in the room that the band or the producer wants to know the opinion on how this part should go or whatever. You need to respect the producer in that. A lot of the time that there's situations where we're struggling on a part, but I do know what the answer is, but I'm trying to get the musician to figure it out. So it's a more rewarding feeling for them. And it doesn't help if the assistant engineers just piped up and said, "Oh, why didn't you?" It just ruins that that thing that the producer may be trying to do. So yeah, and just keeping on top of things, making sure, try and be a step ahead. So if we're if the drums are finishing up, maybe start setting up the bass stuff or whatever that producer would be doing next. Get a head start. The main thing is being out of the way, knowing when to kind of step in and speak to the producer about something. And just being as helpful as you can on the session. I think and here's the thing: if you can show, and it doesn't have to be in an assistant engineer role in a studio, it could just be to a producer, because if you can show a producer or a mixer how helpful you can be to their workload, that could be a permanent, a very long-term job for you. So I mean, especially for mixers, there's so many opportunities right now for you to learn how to prep sessions for mixers and do that remotely. And if you team up with a busy mixer, you've got a lot of work on for you to prep, get the sessions ready for how that mix and what that. This is stuff that can all be done online right now through lockdown. So yeah.
And there's something that we've been doing for the Degrees major project this year is the importance of pre-production and and as much prepared, and it just sort of backs that up. So
I definitely think, like, especially if you're trying to mix something, don't do the prep on a different day. Like, because there's nothing worse than like going through an entire track, editing or doing whatever it is, and then you're like, right, gotta mix this now. It's like, it's better to kind of do that mix fresh, and you open the session up, it's ready to go, and you can be creatively inspired then, and rather than be drained from already looking through the session, with a magnifying glass, and every little detail about it. It's
Okay, I got another question from Carl Horansky. Do you think it's viable to make a career producing and creating music at home entirely?
I don't think there's anything stopping you. I think right now, that we're in a world where Spotify exists, people are consuming music through devices, and there's absolutely nothing stopping you from doing whatever you want right now. I think you've got to kind of just make sure that you can financially make it work, or do something else, and just do that on the side for a little while and build it up, and then when you feel like it's a good time, then do it. But I would say there's absolutely nothing stopping you doing that. You've just got to figure out where you want to go and how, what kind of avenues you're going to take. Are you going to be, when you say creating music, you could be a mixer. That's a mixer is something you can easily do at home entirely. If you're producing music, you've then got to think about, well, have I got the space for the artist to come in, and stuff like that. So figure out what avenue you're going to take. But absolutely, I started mine at home.
Yeah. Okay, I got a question here from Chelsea Davis. What types of equipment would you say is your favorite to work with? Or what is your favorite equipment? Your desert island bit of equipment?
I don't know. I'd probably say the console. I love my Audient console, and it's great to sit in front of, and everything's laid out exactly how I like it. So probably that. Yeah. I mean, I spend the most amount of time sat in front of it. So
Yeah. I'm just going to show everyone, because we got a picture of Romesh's console in the back. So it's exactly the same as the one we've got in our degree studio. It's just the workflow on it is just great, Romesh, isn't it?
It's great, yeah. And there's some cool things that you can do with it. I don't know, how in depth some of you have gone with it, but I mean, one thing that I like to do is use the buses at the top as extra sends. So you could say you even for like utility stuff, like I will have the guitar coming up on a going out of a bus, but I'll also send it to bus 24, and bus 24 is just hardwired to a tuner. So I've always got a tuner. If I want a tuner for any channel on the desk, I just hit bus 24 and it's there. So there's loads of cool little things you can do with that desk that can speed. I also use the bus outs to send to my Echo Pro delay unit, and so if I ever want that, I can just do it off the console. So yeah, I mean, it's a really flexible desk, and it sounds great as well.
Fab. Okay, got a question here from Cole Gifford. What would you say is the best way to improve productivity and motivation when producing music?
I think it's learning when to step away from it for a little bit. I think you can get really too deep on it, and you start focusing on things that really don't matter, and that can be quite draining. Like, at the end of the day, no one's going to listen to a song and go, "Oh, that hi-hat sounds great," like, unless it's a unless it's a focused element of the song, I think it's looking at the bigger picture. When I'm mixing, I'm really not. It doesn't take me too long because I try and do my best to zoom out and listen to the whole thing rather than focusing on a tiny detail that really, in the grand scheme of things, is not going to make that much of a difference. It's more about when it feels good. Is usually the right time to step away and maybe give it a day, come back to it, and then you'll know. I think a lot of the time, you can drain yourself just by going so deep into a guitar sound and notching out this resonance and that one, and after a while, you've taken out all the good stuff from the guitar. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it can get on top of you, and it can get quite stressful at times especially when you kind of, you can't get the sound to come out, or you can't get the mix right. I remember like when I mixed Bring Me the Horizon, it was live at Royal Albert Hall. I mixed 6 songs of it, and I listened to it, and I was like it's almost there, but there's something not quite right, and I kind of I couldn't pinpoint it, and I ended up scrapping all my work and just starting again. And when I started again, it just all came. It was exactly how I wanted it. And sometimes that's what you need to do. You need to make that bold decision. I'm just going to start this again. And it's so surprising that, there'll just be a day where it just all clicks and it all works. And I always know when I'm fighting a mix, and when I do, I just stop. There's just no point carrying on. It's just not meant to be that day.
Yeah. Okay. This is quite an interesting one, specifically as we got a lot of guitarists on this call. So notice you have a lot of guitars on your website and a lot of amps as well. Which would you recommend?
It depends what kind of music you're doing. Naomi, what kind of music are you trying to do at the moment?
Naomi likes a lot of, she likes every single actor you've worked with.
Okay.
She does like a lot of emo as well.
Okay. What I would suggest, and I mean, this is a shameless plug here, but I developed with a company called STL Tones a plugin called Tone Hub, and it's my amp pack for it, and that actually contains all my my main amps, and you can basically get the sounds of my amps in your computer mic'd up the way I mic them up. That's probably, I would highly recommend that if you want something for home, because you don't have to, you can do it silently, you can do it with headphones, and you've got access to so many different amps. If you did want to get an actual amp, I think good Marshall JCM 800 can do a lot of stuff. It's a great sounding amp.
What's your favorite guitar then, Romesh, out of all the guitars you've got?
That's, you can't ask me that question. That's hard. I mean,
You're going away for a year. You're going away on holiday for a year, and you've got to take one guitar with you on that plane. What would it be?
Well, I'd pay extra to take a second guitar.
Okay.
All right. My Fender 52 Telecaster. I bought that a long time ago, and that sounds unreal. I love when you get a good sounding Telecaster. It's just like, it's amazing. And funnily enough, that's the guitar that's all over Smart Casual by Kids in Glass Houses. It'll be that 52. Yeah, that I love that guitar. It's amazing. And for more chunkier stuff, then just a great Les Paul with some good pickups in it always kind of does the trick. There's PRS as well. Actually, I got an S2,
right?
Custom 24, and that's really flexible because, I mean, yeah, here's a good thing. If it's one guitar you've got to try and find one which you can that's got humbuckers that you can split the coils on, because then you've got the best of both worlds. You can that PRS one is really flexible because it's got a 5-way selector, plus you can split the pickups, which is really good.
Yeah, cool.
I just see Kai Llewellyn saying he's just naming stuff we can't afford now. Sorry.
Yeah. So a couple of quick people have asked this question on you. What is your favorite rack equipment? What's your favorite piece of hardware? So I suppose what is your favorite piece of hardware that maybe a desert island piece of kit that you take away with you?
Probably an 1176, because that just sounds amazing on anything. I would say, in terms of if you lot are using plugins, get a good 1176 plugin that will serve you on so many sources. It's a classic, and there's a reason why it's still around and it's still so good.
Yeah, the degree students, they got access to a Universal Audio 1176, and we got a Bluey there as well.
Yeah, the Bluey's amazing. That's my favorite. Favorite one.
So, which Blue Striper are you using? Are you using the hair? Is that the hairball one you got in your studio?
The hairball one, yeah. I bought it off someone in Cardiff. I don't know who it was, but it came up somewhere. But yeah, because I didn't want to buy a kit because I am terrible at electronics.
Yeah.
So I just found one that was already made up, and someone had already done all the hard work for me.
Fantastic. Okay, I got a question here from Lewis Hawkins. What is your general mixing workflow? Is there a particular way that you approach your mixes?
Yeah, so I have a session file, which basically for me, after mixing for so many years now and mixing so many songs, you kind of build up some kind of template as to how your session is going to look. This is not sound, just the way that you have things bust to places. And maybe you always use a parallel kick, snare, compressor. So I have a template which is a starting point, which basically allows me to not waste any time setting up stuff. It means I can go way quicker. The whole mixing workflow for me is I don't want anything to stop me. I just want to be able to go on it. So I spent a lot of time. We can screen share if you want. I can show some of this.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how clear it's going to be on your. Okay. So I hope you can see this.
Oh, look.
Can you see?
Yep, we can see it.
I don't know if it's blurry or not. It is. It looks blurry on my screen. But essentially, so there are some things that I always do. So, for instance, I have all my kicks go to a kick bus. Snares, there's 2 snare mics on this song, and a bottom, and they all go to the snares. And then the toms, all the toms end up going to this. And that's so I can just do some general volume things with one fader, or I can make one element brighter. And then I split the buses here. So all the shells go to this drum bus, and then all the cymbals go to this B bus. The reason is there are times where I want to make the shells brighter, but I don't want to make the cymbals brighter. Or I want to add some distortion or saturation to the drums, but not the cymbals. So I split them here, but then I combine them back here with this drums all group. So that allows me to have just one fader control of the whole drums. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I do, and I found that's been really helpful for me. And then there are certain like reverbs and stuff that I've used for so long, and I really like them. And so why should I bother setting them up every time on a session? I just have them appear. So yeah, I've over time I've just kind of built up a starting point for me and there are plugins that are inactive when it loads, so I can try something. If it works, great. I can tweak it and then move on. If it's not right, then I'll just load up something else to use. But the point being, I've got all this stuff ready so that I can work. I can get on with chasing the sound that's in my head of where I want it to be. Even with things like vocals, I have like vocal slap delays. I've got long delays. I've got widening verbs. They're all set up ready. The channels are ready at least. So I would maybe look at doing something like that where you can set something personal for yourself that's got, look at your sessions. Is this something you do that you're just doing every time? We'll streamline that and make it part of a template so that you've already got that done, and that's one less step for you to do. So just try and think of things like that, because if you can, the more of that kind of boring stuff you can eliminate, the more focused you are at just going for the mix. And so yeah, try that.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, I got one from Yanto Jones. Do you use any software or hardware synths? If so, which one is the most useful for you?
I don't use a lot of hardware synths unless it's something really cool. Contacts, Complete. That's been really good. Yeah, I think that's a good package which will cover you for everything. I know from Control Room, someone was asking about strings and stuff, and people have been saying that Spitfire is really good value.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually a free Spitfire thing you can get as well. So it might be worth exploring that and seeing if there's any good stuff there. Also, if you're doing a lot of electronic stuff, maybe look at joining Splice, because there's a ton of cool loops and sounds, and you can also rent synths and stuff like that, so you can pay for them gradually. So it might be worth kind of trying an account with them and see. There's a lot of synth based stuff on there.
Yeah, and our Native Instruments Complete, we got that in the degree labs.
Yeah,
and
brilliant.
Oh, fantastic. You got Massive there, Battery, all the different sounds, covers a variety of different genres. The sounds are incredible.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, if you get that, you're kind of set. You've got everything you need. Yeah. But it's not cheap, so it is a bit of an investment. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of low cost stuff out there. I think Arturia are doing some really great stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well, students get 50% discount on Native Instruments. So something to capitalize on.
That's great. Yeah.
Guys.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Definitely have a look at that.
Brill. Okay, so got a question here from Jacob Lynch. What was it like working with Trash Boat? They're one of my favorites.
They're great. I really like that band. I started working with them when I mixed that record with a really long name that I always forget. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but I mixed their first record. I think it was their first record. And then we did a couple of singles. I did Synthetic Sympathy, which is one of the last singles with them. It was their last single. They're great. They're really, really great players. Very fun to work with. They very easy when it comes to doing any changes and stuff like that. They're really, really great band. I really enjoy their music.
Fantastic. I'll have to check them out. I haven't checked them out. Yeah. Okay, next question is from Latif. Do you have a different mindset when mixing tracks that you didn't produce compared to tracks that you have produced? Do you often make production decisions in the mix?
That is a really interesting question. Yeah. I think I really like, and I like mixing tracks that I haven't produced, because it's almost like a blank canvas, and you're not kind of married to any of the components in the mix. Where if you produced it, you know every detail of like, would you favor a part in the track because it took you hours to get, so maybe it's different. I mean, for me, what I do is I listen to the song. If it's something that I haven't, if I didn't produce it, then I usually ask for the rough mix or the last mix that's available, because I know that that's where the band were happy. So if I can get there and then take it further, then that's great. I think the rough mix is important. I think it's, you get a lot of clues from that as to what the band were trying to do. And it also with balances, where they, if there's, especially if there's a lot of key stuff, the rough mix and the monitor mix usually gives you a lot of indications of what they were trying to do with it. But yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I listen to the rough, and the process of me mixing is I get the sound of it in my head. It may seem like a really obvious thing to say, but it's, for me, that's so important, because if I don't do that, I'm just aimlessly pottering around on the mix session, and I haven't got any goal set or like any idea of what I'm actually shooting for. So I always try and listen to the rough and imagine in my head where I want to take it, and then my process of mixing is then trying to get that sound to come out the speakers. So I mean, in terms of that, that's the same whether I mixed it or not, or whether I produced it or not. But I would definitely try and imagine how you want it to sound, and then that process of mixing is a lot easier, because you're not just aimlessly just fixing stuff with no idea how to bring it together. So yeah.
Okay, I think that this next question is a little bit tricky, and I don't know whether you'll be able to answer it, but is the music scene in Bridgend good at the moment? Of many, good acts that are coming through there. I suppose it's quite a hard one to answer, specifically in these COVID times with venues closed and stuff.
I am slightly out of touch with the Bridgend music scene, but I know there's an artist called Kyle Davis. He's really good. I can't think who's around at the moment, where they're from. I'm sure there are, there's great music scenes everywhere. There's artists all over the place. I'm sure you could very easily find, with the power of social media, if you wanted to collaborate with someone or find someone to maybe offer your services to, I'm sure you'll have no shortage of finding someone in the area.
Yeah, cool. Next one, David Hill. With the commercial success of Bring Me the Horizon's emo album, would you like to produce more best-selling albums?
Well, that's, of course. I mean, there's it's always a great feeling when you work on something that becomes very successful. It kind of makes all the work you've done it's just a rewarding feeling, isn't it? So yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I love developing new artists as well. I think that's equally rewarding when you develop a small artist and see them grow. I think that that's also a great feeling. So yeah.
Have you got anything exciting at the moment, Romesh, that you're sort of developing artist-wise or bands?
It's a couple of projects on. Can't really talk about them at the moment, but yeah, there's a few cool things going on. But
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, question from Carl. When in the studio setting, do you prefer doing the track in a take, then doing the overdubs, or starting with the rhythm track and building it up?
This changes for me. It's a really good question because there's no right way. I think you have to gauge it on the band, how they are, how they play together. I'd always try and see if you can watch the band play before you start working with them. If you can. It's different. I think if you're going for that whole band vibe where you want things to not be completely perfect, you want a little bit of that imperfection, because obviously that's what makes music special. It's not always completely perfect. Then setting the band up in a room, doing a take like that, and then doing dubs is a great thing. And doing it that way is fun for everyone in the studio. I think the important thing you've got to remember at times is you've got to try and keep the session interesting for everyone as well. You need everyone to be motivated. So yeah, having everyone set up together is great fun because everyone feels like they're contributing from the beginning. But that being said, there are some sessions where I will build it up, sometimes even from the demo stems. It may be a song that we're developing in the studio. So in that case, it sometimes makes more sense to take where they were on the demo, load that into my DAW and start building around it and on top of it and changing things from there. I think every artist is different. Like a lot of the time anyway, I will have the band playing, and even if I'm just taking the drums, at least the drums have got the feel of playing with the rest of the band, because at the end of the day, that's how they wrote the song. They wrote the song usually in a rehearsal room together. So it makes sense that you lay down the foundations of it with everyone playing together as well.
Brilliant. Okay.
There's loads of questions here.
There is a lot of questions, yeah. Kai Llewellyn, what's your favourite record or EP? What do you like about the composition and what do you like about the mix?
Oh, this put me on the spot again as well. I mean, I'm a huge Oasis fan, so it's probably going to be. I don't know if you're asking me about mine or someone else's, but if it's someone else's, it's Oasis. I love that band, and I love the fact that their records just sound like no other. Like you put one of their records on and it's just instantly it's got a signature sound. I think that's a really powerful thing to have in a mix, isn't it? It's like it's great when you can put it on and you just know what it is. Like, but yeah, probably them.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Then I knew you were going to say
it's quite predictable with me.
But those first two records, to me, just they're different. They're both different from each other, but it's just outstanding. And that first record as well, they recorded that in Wales, in Mono Valley, and then they re-recorded it then after, didn't they?
Well, I think it's what I was going back on about, which is the imperfections and how that really doesn't matter in it, and if anything, it makes a record even more exciting. And it took me a while to figure that out, to be honest, because I think when I was starting out, I just wanted everything to be perfect, and I would spend hours obsessing over stuff, and like just after a while, I was like, you know what, this isn't important. It's more important to capture the vibe and the feel of everything. And I think that's more important than the most perfect floor tom sound or whatever.
Okay, I got another question by Kai. How do you get kicks to cut through the mix and sound punchier? How do you mix your kicks? What does your signal chain look like?
Okay, so maybe I'll just talk about what I do to record kicks first. Maybe that's a good start. Yeah. For kick drum, I'm usually using 3 mics. So I'll have a kick in, which is, it could be a few options here. I really like the RE20 mic. I like a Beta 52. I like the Beta 98, 91, sorry, 91, which is the PZM mic. And then I'll have a sub kick. So I use the Yamaha sub kick, which I think sounds better to me than using, people are using NS10 drivers, and they're it's a really easy mod to change the speaker into a microphone. It's just you're just changing the polarity on it. It's actually a good thing if you wanna build one at home. Just buy the parts and have a go at it. It's really not difficult to make a sub kick of your own. So I use a Yamaha sub kick, and then I'll use some kind of large diaphragm condenser, and they're all capturing different things. So the kick in mic is getting all the attack, all the punch. The sub kick is purely getting that nice deep low end, and then the other condenser mic is just getting the more overall sound of the front of the kick drum. In terms, I believe that if you want to get the kick to cut through the mix, you have to record it really well. I think the kick drum is a real if you've got a bad kick drum, it's not easy to rescue it. So always spend some time on the kick drum. That goes for drums in general. I strongly believe that the drums are like the key to getting the rest of the production to work in rock music anyway. Because if you get the drum sound really great and it can be loud and proud without you having to cover anything up, then everything else just falls into place. And I find that when people do tracks and the drums don't sound very good, they pile all these extra guitars that don't need to be there, that are just to cover up the bad drum sound. Where if you get the drums really good, you find that you don't actually need so many overdubs afterwards. But going back to the kick, yeah, it starts with a really good source signal, I think. I'll use like FabFilter Q3 to, maybe I can share the screen again. Yeah, let's share the screen. Hold on. Okay, can you see this?
So there we go.
Can you see this channel strip?
Not really. It's a little bit small.
Is it? Okay, never mind then. I basically will use some EQ. I'll take it off screen share then if it's too small. Some EQ just to kind of carve out the stuff that I don't want. I can't stand it when people say, "Oh, you should always cut 300 out of a kick." To me, that's nonsense, because every kick is going to sound different. Mm-hmm. But saying that, it's a good area to look at, and somewhere between that 300 to 500 area, there will most likely be some kind of cardboardy sounding, boxy frequencies that you can just pull out a little bit or control, and that can help make the kick cut through. Even though you're taking stuff away, it can really help with getting it to be, you can get the level of the kick louder then, because you've cut this mid-rangey stuff out, which all the bass and guitars kind of need that space. And then compression, just using some decent compression to kind of get the kick even. There's a great plugin called Spiff, which is amazingly good for making kick sound punchier. So you could demo that plugin and see if that gets you somewhere. There's a plugin called Drum Leveler as well, which is very useful for getting things more even. Don't forget, you can go into the, don't always rely on the compressor. You can go in and clip gain certain quieter hits up if you want. And also, there is absolutely nothing wrong with leaning on a sample if that's if you're going to get the more punch out of blending it with the sample, then just do it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. And to be honest, in modern music, there's a lot of that.
Bro, thank you. Okay, I love this next question. Your website says you've worked with Busted, but I can't find any information about that. What was your involvement with Busted?
I mixed live at Wembley for them. It's a DVD called Pigs Can Fly, I think.
Okay.
That was a huge task. I was actually in New Zealand when I got the phone call to work on that, and they needed it done like relatively soon. I was like, I'm not even in the country right now. So it was crazy because I was on the other side of the world, and so I had to arrange a team in the UK to start editing it, getting it all prepped for how I wanted it.
Yeah.
So that when I got back to the UK, I could go straight in and mix it without having to worry about anything. So I had a team of people who were strip silencing. So essentially, what that means is, say the vocals, there's three singers in the band, and I didn't want all that bleed going through on their vocal mics, because if you can imagine how loud it is in a gig like Wembley, all that noise coming into the mic, and then you've got three lead singers, it's just a nightmare. So I had two editors working on a half of the show each, and I had to brief them exactly how I wanted it done, so that when I put the two halves together, it matched.
Yeah.
It was quite a task, but it was the only way we could get it done. And yeah, it was great. I think it came out really well. I'm really, really pleased with it. There's a moment in the set where it became a nightmare, because halfway through the show, Busted go into a stage that's in the middle of the arena. And the problem is, you've got the vocal mics facing the PA, which is also playing their vocal. So I had like 150 millisecond delay built into the vocal mic, and that was a nightmare. And like, if you listen closely, you can probably hear some edits going on, because we just had to clean it out, because it was just like, it was unbearable. But again, these are challenges that you will face as when you get stuff like this, and it's how you just have to get it done. You can't say to the band, can we re-record that song, because it's done. The gig's over. You have to now do whatever you can using whatever knowledge or tools you have to get the job done. And so we managed to just get it sounding right. But there's challenges like mixing live stuff, and comes with a lot of challenges.
Yeah. Did you mix it all in the box in the window?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So I was given with live things like that, I like to be given the video cut, because a lot of what I do with the mix will be connected to what's happening on the video. So there might be a little push somewhere because of what's going on the screen, and I feed off the energy of the show. So I think I like to I think for me, even if I'm mixing, I'm always thinking about the end. Like, I'm always imagining the end result. So by seeing the picture as well and hearing my mix, I'm seeing what the end consumer is going to have, and that's really important. So but it was all in the box. The reason that was so important is because if you need to do a change, you need to be able to open it so quickly. You haven't got time to like recall all this stuff, and so and I've been mixing in the box for years now. I have to. I just can't. I work on quite a lot of projects sometimes at the same time, and I just couldn't. I wouldn't be able to like recall stuff, and I like the fact that my system is now in a position where I can take a portable rig anywhere and open any mix, and it's where I left it off. So
yeah. Fab. Okay, I don't know who this is. CTHL. Okay, sounds like a rapper. Is there an album mixed or produced by someone else that you would want to mix yourself? Would you change? What would you change? Sorry.
I think if I answered that question, I would offend someone. I don't know. I don't think I can answer that.
Yeah,
Because
that's all right. Okay, moving on.
but I would say that, you know, every record is a snapshot in time of where everyone was, and you can't change that. There, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that, you know, you can look back on and go, oh, I wish I did that on it. But, you know, it is a snapshot in time. It's done.
Yeah.
And you just got to try and, you know, separate that really and enjoy it for what it is.
Exactly, because if you look at like Motown music or Stax records, you know, they're a lot quieter when you listen to the mixes.
Yeah.
They're live recordings. There's a lot of bleed going on. The bleed makes those records and stuff.
Totally, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Fab. Okay. Okay. How would you deal with producer's block?
You just got to take breaks. I have stopped doing super long sessions for a long time now. I just don't think it works for me. I know there's certain producers who are quite happy to go into like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. For me, I don't see the benefit. I think there comes a point where you're just recording stuff for the sake of it, and none of it's good, because everyone's tired. So I think what I like to do is do shorter days, but be really focused and get a lot done. And then everyone goes and, you know, has dinner at home and, you know, enjoys their life, and then come back the next day like fully recharged, not knackered from the previous night. And, you know, I think that's a huge thing for me, is just being aware of like not draining yourself. So yeah, I mean, I definitely try and, you know, balance things out, and I think that helps stop you from having any kind of like block mentally.
Okay, cool. And what was it like produced in Bring Me the Horizon, and what was your approach to their synth sounds?
I recorded that album, so they already had like the, you know, the ideas they wanted to kind of do with that record. For me, like Jordan is amazing at, you know, the synth sounds. He's super talented. And I think for me it was basically trying to capture sounds that were going to fit around that, and we're going to work with, you know, knowing that there was going to be these synth elements in there, and making sure that the sounds that we got were, you know, would live together with them. One thing that I was doing on that record, I hand tuned pretty much every bass note you hear on it, because one thing I wanted to do was make sure that, because there's with a lot of their tracks, they have a synth bass running as well, which is like a deep, you know, very deep sound. And one thing I can't stand is when real guitar and a synth bass together, you get that chorus feeling, you get that chorus sound, because the bass is so going in and out of tune against the synth one. So I actually connected, I had a screen with Melodyne, and I had that connected to a rack tuner, and I went in and just I slid every note in.
Yeah.
Because that was the way that I knew it'd be solid with the synth parts, with the low end there. It's time consuming, but I mean, you know, I don't think anyone's going to notice it, but yeah, it was bugging me. So I did it.
So you did that for the whole album, was it?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a couple of songs I didn't do it on, but yeah. I mean, I can definitely remember doing it on Medicine and Mother Tongue. I think it's on Mantra as well.
Cool. Yeah,
there's definitely a few that it just felt like it was all wobbling around a little bit, and that, I mean, that's something I do a fair bit. I will sometimes, because the bass is such a hard instrument to keep in tune, because it's so low, the strings are so thick, and the pressure, you know, you could hit a fret one time and it'll be in tune, and you do it again and it's like out. And I think sometimes a slightly out of tune bass guitar can make everything really blurry, or it just feels like the track's not connected in the bottom end.
Yeah.
So there will be times where I'll just tune the bass. I'll just slide it in a little bit. I think it really works. There's two ways you can do it, by the way. If you're using multiple, like me, I have 3 bass channels, but you can't tune those all individually. It won't work like that. So you have 2 approaches. You can either bounce the sound to one mono bass, submix, and you tune that, and then you can't change the balance ever again. The clever way to do it is to tune the DI and then reamp it back out through the amp and the whatever else you're using, and then you're reamping the tuned bass, and you've got everything together again.
Cool.
So
I think it's a little shout out one by you, Romesh. Kurt Jones, he was in the band called Who Saves the Hero. Do you remember working with that band?
I think so, yeah. It must be a long time ago now.
Yeah. And
how you doing? Hope you're good.
And we got a question from Ian Nichols. Could you suggest anyone who is willing to help smaller bands with around 2,000 followers or fans to help produce an album?
When you say help, let me read the question again. Could you suggest anyone who is willing to help smaller bands with around 2,000 followers produce an album? I guess if you're trying to raise the funding, I would look at maybe some crowdfunding, like not pledge, because that that collapsed very badly. But I think there's I can't think of what the other ones are, but there are definitely some crowdfunding options where your fans can help pay for the record. So maybe explore that and come up with some incentives that would drive people to, to help make it happen.
Fab. Okay, Carl, how would I go about recording a nice full drum sound with one condenser mic? I have a Rode NT1 and I struggle to get a nice clear sound with the drums.
Okay. Typically with drums, it's a multi-mic'd instrument. So when you multi-mic it, you've got full control over everything. But if you're trying to do it with one mic, I would start by trying the kit in different parts of the room first and seeing where it sounds best. What you can do is just take a kick drum and just move, just kind of play it in different parts of the room. And I would usually lean towards where I'm getting the most low end, where there's like a buildup of bottom end is usually where I'd put the drums. So that's a good point, because you want the drums to sound good in the room. If the drums don't sound good in the room, that one mic is going to be capturing, not a good sound. So you have to make it easy for the mic. So find a good spot. And then the next thing is get someone to play that drum kit, and you walk around the room until you hear where the low end sounds nice and strong, and try and put the mic there. The reason why I think it's important to find the spot with the most low end is because cymbals are just naturally loud and they will cut through everything. And you don't want that mic to just be picking up loads of cymbals. So if you put that mic in the thinnest part of the room where there's no low end, it is just going to pick up loads of cymbals and hardly any low end, or low mids of the kick and the snare. So by putting the mic in a part of the room where it does have a lot of that low end, it means you're giving the mic a good head start, because it's not just picking up the cymbals, it's going to get everything else as well. So start there if you can with drums. It depends on what sound you're going for, but to be honest, if you're trying to get a modern rock sound, I would look at kind of trying to get a multi-mic kit together, and there's plenty of cheap options. I think Shure do a budget drum recording pack, and I'd maybe look at look at maybe investing in something like that.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so we got a comment by Nichols. When producing Silosis, how did you manage to achieve such a raw and massive sound for the guitars?
That was Josh. I think, what was it? Josh has got this modded JCM 800 with a Dan Gower modification. Dan Gower is amazingly talented guy who modifies Marshall amps and makes them sound killer. So yeah, I think Josh was using that. It was a modified Dan Gower amp. And
Wow.
yeah, Josh is just an incredible guitarist as well, which definitely helps.
Yeah. Okay, Naomi Collins. In Mantra, what was your approach on using the female voice saying mantra?
I have no idea, because that would have been Jordan. I think it's some kind of computer synthesis or something. I don't know, to be honest. Sorry, but it's cool. I love it when that moment happens. It almost gives me the chills, because it's just really unsettling for me when I hear that part of the song.
Yeah. Where did it get recorded? The album?
We did it in Sphere Studios in North Hollywood, which is not a bad place to spend 2 months.
We were 2 months on the record, yeah.
Yeah, 2 months. We were there for 2 months.
Oh wow!
Do you take your system over there for that? Because I know you.
No, I used in-house. We had two great. I was a pain in the ass there, because basically I thought it would be better to not. They have two main studios there. So they have a room with a studio A with a Neve, the studio B with an SSL, and I said it'd be better for us to switch studios every so often. So, because you're not spending 2 months in the same room. You've got a scene change, and also it was because I wanted to record the drums on the Neve and guitars on the SSL board, because that's my that's a great a great combination of things. But so it was hard on the assistants, because we'd have all the drums set up, but then when we moved into B, my brief to the assistants is, when we come back to A, I want it all set up exactly where we left off. But we weren't, there were other clients booked in that room, so they had to tear it down. So they used laser pointers. They were walking around rooms with recording themselves, going, "This mic is this many meters away from this." They like, I have a folder full of floor diagrams that they had. They were amazing. They really, they understood how important that was. It's not because we wanted to come back to the same drum sound, but I wanted to come back to. I didn't want to have to figure out, everything again. I wanted some kind of starting point to then build the next songs with. So yeah, there was I don't think, I don't think they liked me for that few months. There was a lot, but they were brilliant. They were really good, and they had everything recalled. The entire desk was back to normal every time you went in whichever studio. It was they were outstanding.
Yeah. Brill. We're gonna have one more question, Romesh, and then I got a question to finish up then today. If that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. With regards to mixing metal in general, how would you go about mixing the guitars? I've heard lots of people saying to use multi-band compressors. What is your opinion?
I think it starts with the right sound. I think, yeah, it definitely starts with the right sound, and if it's the wrong sound, then reamp it. You've got to find something that sits with everything else first. I guess that's one great thing about using things like the STL Tone Hub or whatever, is that you can very quickly audition different sounds, and you can go, that one fits in the mix really well, and then you can use that. I think multi-band, yes. I definitely feel like the low end, like palm mutes or chugs or anything like that, a multi-band on the low end is very good, just to if that stuff gets too much, then the multi-band can kind of attenuate it. I also think it's trying not to do too much as well. I see so many people carving so many notches into their guitars, and then it just sounds weird. I think it's picking the. I would say if you, one plugin that is incredible on guitars is a plugin called Soothe, because guitars naturally have these resonances in when you've got a microphone so close up to the speaker, there is going to be some resonances there that you are going to want to tame. But Soothe is amazing because instead of having that notch exist on the entire guitar part, it only attenuates when it becomes an issue. So you're preserving the guitar sound a bit more because it's only ducking those frequencies that are a problem when it reaches a certain threshold. So I would definitely look at getting Soothe. I think that helps. I think also mixing, metal needs to sound big. So I mean, rhythm guitars, I'm going hard left, hard right. I tend to have as much stuff as I can wide so that vocal and the kick drum is going to be a pain in most metal music because it's so fast usually. So you don't want stuff clogging up that middle area. You try and let the kick have some space there. There's some, if you want to try widening, like Plugin Alliance is a great company. They do a subscription for like all their plugins, and there's one called Shred Spreader, I think, and it's really great on guitars actually for widening. You've got to be careful when you widen guitars though, that the more you do it, the less mono compatibility it's going to have. So by that I mean, if you look at things like Sonos speakers, there's Bluetooth speakers, a lot of them are mono. So what you might find is if you make the guitars too wide, you're going to end up with no guitars when you play it back on a Sonos or something like that. So you've got to find a balance as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important. I went through a lot of time not being bothered about mono. I almost didn't care about it at all, and now I'm starting to care about it a bit more because all these new Bluetooth devices are mono. So it's got to sound good on those. Yeah,
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that, Romesh. So I figure it'd be a good time to talk about Control Room. So a lot of you guys now, you're aspiring musicians.
Let me just get my mug.
There we are. Yeah, there it is. So basically, Romesh has got this amazing community on Facebook where there's loads of producers, engineers from all across the world on there, and there's some amazing discounts and stuff. There we are. Take it away, Romesh.
Just have a look at it. It's I think John's put a link up in the. Thanks, John. Control-room.net. It's an audio community filled with people who've made some outstanding records, and you get to chat with them, and they're very generous with telling you their tricks, tips, and techniques. How they did stuff. There's been so many times where people have like posted up, "Oh, how do I get this? This sound." And then the person who actually produced it is in Control Room, and they've just put all the settings up and been like, "There you go." And it's a really generous place. We have loads of discounts for plugins and stuff. There's some of them are like up to 50% off. Even microphones and stuff. There's the Jay-Z vocal mic I was talking about, for instance. There's 50% off for members in there. There's multi-tracks that you can download. There's a Funeral for a Friend multi-track in there. There's Lower Than Atlantis multi-track. The one we're doing right now is actually one John may have had some involvement in. I don't know. It's Bad Touch.
Nick, I heard all about it. It's Nick who produced it. I think it got mastered at Abbey Road.
Yeah. Well, I mixed one of the songs that Nick recorded. And it's a great recording. It's done at Rockfield. And you can download that and mix it. There's prizes to be won for mixes. It's great. We do live streams. I just did a couple of videos yesterday talking about vocal treatment and stuff like that, and I'm constantly putting stuff out there. There's a Discord group as well, so you can go and hang out with other members and either collaborate, or there's lots of, if you need help with a specific DAW, there's like a channel for each DAW. There's loads of stuff on there. So yeah, come and check. It is a subscription, but it's only £5.50 a month, so you can try it. You can cancel it at any time. So if it's not for you, then you can easily cancel it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, Romesh, for joining us and having a chat to our music students and that.
It's always great to talk to you all.
Yeah, brilliant. There we go. All right, thanks, guys.
Nice one.